Let me just end my workout. So this is Nick Siekierski, researchteacher.com. I'm out in front of the Embassy of the United States in Warsaw, Poland, here with Ronald Reagan. And these are the Aleje Ujazdowskie, the street in Warsaw where most of the embassies lie, and also the Belvedere Palace, where currently Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, is meeting with President of Poland, Andrzej Duda. 2 weeks ago today, Russia, the Russian Federation, invaded Ukraine. Their justification was that there was genocide or something like that going on in the republics, so-called, that they had invaded back in 2014. This is not true. There was no genocide committed by Ukrainians against the Russians. There was warfare between the two sides while Ukraine rightfully tried to defend its territory. So 2 weeks into the war, the situation is not as Russia had planned. They had hoped for a quick war. They had hoped to install their own puppet regime in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. And that didn't happen. The Ukrainians showed fierce resistance. They've bogged down the Russians. They've killed thousands of their soldiers. They've destroyed hundreds, if not thousands, of vehicles, numerous tanks, and perhaps even more critically, dozens and dozens of fuel trucks. The logistics of their invasion have faltered. Logistics are the key to warfare. They were one of the main reasons why Hitler failed to achieve his goals in Operation Barbarossa, the attack on the Soviet Union 80 years ago in 1941. 81 years ago this year. So I just wanted to do a short report here in Warsaw. Since I am just here for a few more weeks, I successfully defended my dissertation on Herbert Hoover and the American Relief Administration in Poland between 1919 and 1922. I defended it at the Institute of History of the Polish Academy of Sciences. And today is the final vote of the academic committee. Assuming it all goes well, and it should just be a formality, I will be Dr. Nick Siekierski, or Nick Siekierski, PhD, however you prefer, as of today. And tomorrow I will be able to pick up my diploma, which makes me very happy. And despite the turmoil of these days, of course, as a historian, as someone interested in politics, it's also quite interesting for me to be here right now. Of course, I am well aware of the devastation and damage done to Poland through war over the years, especially from both Germany and Russia. Of course, now the situation is different, although the threat from Russia remains, unfortunately. It's also terrible for the Russian people, who are now subject to devastating economic repercussions and sanctions from the United States, from Europe. Numerous Western countries have pulled out of Russia. I believe McDonald's has even pulled out, so people were even selling the last wrappers for their cheeseburgers online in Russia. Apple has stopped reselling products in Russia. The ruble, the Russian currency, has dropped precipitously. I believe it stands at about 1 penny for 1 ruble right now. It may have gotten worse. Of course, Russia is not the only one affected by this. Poland is affected by it as well. The Polish zloty, or PLN, the Polish currency, has dropped by about 20% in the last 2 weeks. So it's close to 5 Polish zlotys for $1 US. whereas it was closer to 4 Polish zlotys for $1 2 weeks ago. So I am just waiting here in front of the U.S. Embassy. I am a citizen of the United States, for which I am very grateful. I am also a citizen of Poland. I am ethnically, natively Polish. I was born in the U.S. but raised in America, and now I'm in Warsaw, my adopted hometown. So I feel very much at home with the Embassy of the United States at my back, and with the ground of Poland and Warsaw under my feet, and with Ronald Reagan over my shoulder. So I'm going to try to get some footage of the motorcade of Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, who is meeting with Polish leaders to reaffirm the commitment to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, the alliance that is meant to defend Europe from Russia, basically. There are other threats, of course, potentially. The main reason it was created was to defend the European allies of America from the Soviet Union. Of course, the Soviet Union is no more, but the threat remains from the East, especially from Vladimir Putin's Russia. This is Nick in Warsaw, hoping for peace as soon as possible, although as we've learned, and it may be misattributed to Ronald Reagan, but he believed in peace through strength. Of course, he also did definitely say trust, but verify. And that's one thing that the Poles are doing in meeting with Vice President Harris. Of course, just recently, a day or two ago, they made the proposal to send their MiG fighter jets. These are Soviet-era jets. I believe these are from the 90s. Don't quote me on that. But these are basically older style jets. They proposed to send them to Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, which is the main U.S. Air Force base in Europe, to hand over to control of the United States and to transfer to Ukraine so that Ukrainian pilots who are familiar with MiGs can use them in the defense of their country. This idea was shot down, no pun intended, no implications intended, by the United States, believing that it would be too provocative against Russia. So it was decided not to carry out this plan, at least for now. Poland believed that it could send these MiGs to the U.S., who would send them to Ukraine, and that the U.S. would then provide Poland with upgraded F-16 fighter jets in compensation. The U.S. didn't agree to this. As I said, they didn't want to provoke Russia. Of course, according to Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, any attack against a NATO member is considered an attack on the entire alliance. So this would be seen as a provocation in that fighter jets, arms would be provided directly to the country that Russia is at war with. So we'll see what happens. There is a lot of ammunition and supplies, anti-tank, anti-aircraft weapons being provided to Ukraine by Poland, by the Czech Republic, by even Finland and Sweden, and of course the United States, which is having a devastating effect on the Russian military. Whether it'll be enough to force Putin to negotiate remains to be seen. The foreign minister of Ukraine met with Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, today, and their negotiations did not bear any fruit. According to the foreign minister of Ukraine, it doesn't seem that the foreign minister of Russia, Lavrov, is empowered to make decisions on behalf of Russia. And as it stands, it appears that Putin is the one that holds the not all the cards, but he's the one in charge in Russia. Let's hope for peace. Peace in Europe, especially for the Ukrainians, the suffering Ukrainians, 1.3 million of whom have come into Poland just in the last 2 weeks, with hundreds of thousands more on their way. I have friends and friends of friends who have been impacted by this. They've had to escape Ukraine. They're waiting at the border, or they recently made it across. So let's hope for their sake and for the millions of Ukrainians whose lives have been devastated and upended by this tragic invasion and war against their country by Russia, that it will end soon in conditions that are as agreeable as can be obtained at this juncture. This is Nick Siekierski. You can call me Dr. Nick Siekierski, I think. Confidently I can say now. Signing off in Warsaw, Poland, in front of the Embassy of the United States, waiting for the motorcade of Vice President Kamala Harris with Ronald Reagan over my shoulder. Visit me at researchteacher.com. That's researchteacher.com. Talk to you later. And there it goes, Kamala Harris's motorcade. And here we are in front of the American Embassy in Warsaw. Once again, this is Nick signing off, researchteacher.com.